Beloved by the kidding virus. Wow, I guess it does sound like the Quran.
It's starting to get really stupid and boring. Looks like whoever wants to get famous or wants to get some attention, the first thing they do is post something that's Islamophobic. Something that is insulting and causes hate.
Dangerous people, these lockdown cheats, they have compromised us all.
What are you talking about?
We were just winning when they did everything to defeat us.
Oh my God! Well, that is something and a half.
There are tons of people who are coming forward with anti-Islamic insults and trolls. It's like the trend of 21st century. The latest being Surah Corona, which is a pathetic attempt that is filled with fails, fallacies, linguistic as well as contextual contradictions, as I'm going to show you in this video. Now, I don't usually spend my time responding to trolls, but since many atheists are coming up claiming that they have finally managed to challenge the Holy Quran with this stupid piece of literature, I think it's time to educate people about what's really going on. Now, to those people who don't know what's really happening, let me give you a quick review of the situation. It started with some dumb attempt by a guy named Jilu to meet the Quran's challenge by bringing a chapter like it, as it says in chapter 2 verse 23. If you are in doubt about what we have revealed to our servant, then produce a chapter like it and call all your helpers other than Allah if what you say is true. The challenge is to bring at least a chapter that matches with the astounding eloquence of the Holy Quran.
Multiple meaning, grammatical shift, word order and arrangement, ellipsis, conceptual relatedness, intensification, choice of words, repetition, intimacy, exaggeration, and prophecy.
So this guy, his name is Jilu, he made up a short, ripped off copy from the Quran that is filled with errors. He called the chapter Surah Corona, and it got popular only because some woman who shared it and insulted the Quran got arrested. Then a proud psychopath and a liar whose name you probably know, David Wood, made a video about the situation. Then the ex-Muslim organization made someone recite the dumb surah or the dumb imitation in a similar recitation as the Quran, posting it on YouTube and Twitter, asking people to share it, leading to Mr. Potato Head, also known as apostate prophet, to comment and share it, mocking the Quran and Islam with all these other ignorant and stupid people, rejoicing at what really is a poor attempt.
Oh my God!
The moment I read the chapter, I died laughing. It was so stupid and funny. It was filled with errors. The chapter contains 10 verses, and in a rough read, I was able to point out more than 10 mistakes. Now remember, the Holy Quran contains 6,236 verses and contains 0 errors. So tell me again how this stupid attempt was supposed to win against the Holy Quran. Those ignorant people who believed the guy started insulting and throwing up all kinds of curse words at the Quran. So I thought it's time to give a fitting reply in their own tone and sarcastic style. So without any further ado, let's have a look at Surah Corona and analyze how unworthy it is to even be measured on the same level as the Holy Quran. Let's start. Let's start by reading the verses. COVID, which stands for COVID. Wal-Virus al-Mubin, by the eradicating virus. بل عجبوا أن جاءهم من الصين البعيد but they were surprised that it came to them from China far away. If you look at the first 3 verses that I just read, it's quite clear that it's a ripped off copy of first 3 verses of Surah Qaf. Notice the parallelism between the Quran and the attempted surah. The Quran starts off with a word, the name of the surah, and swears by Al-Quran Al-Majid, the object and the descriptor. This was imitated by the attempted surah by starting with Kofid, Covid, and swears by Al-Firus Al-Mubin, object and descriptor. I mean, this is the very style that they are arguing against. But imitation is the best form of flattery after all. Imagine this. Vincent van Gogh, who is one of the best painters in the world, challenges the world to bring a painting better than his Starry Night, which is a beautiful painting. So an amateur guy who does not have any idea about the complexity of art comes up and photocopies his painting and adds a tree and some other stupid things here and there to the painting and then claims that he has finally done it. How stupid is that? How stupid is that? How stupid do you have to be to believe that the photocopied version is better than the real version? That is not how you attempt a challenge. That is plagiarism. How pathetic is that? On verse 3 it says, it came to them from China far away. China far away.
Go back.
So what about people who are reading it from China? The Quran was sent for the whole of humanity. But this chapter seems like it was written for someone who lives far away from China. Because when someone in China reads it, there seems to be a contradiction. I don't know why you hate China so much.
Read it grows.
China. Verse 4 reads, فَقَالَ الْكَافِرُونَ إِنَّهُ مَرَضٌ عَنِيدٌ, which means, so the infidels or the kafirun said it was a stubborn disease. And that's an error. Not only the non-Muslims or the non-believers, all the 1.7 billion Muslims on the planet unanimously agrees that this is bad. All the 45 Islamic countries on the planet considers coronavirus a major threat socially, politically and economically. So what in the world are you talking about?
Every 60 seconds in Africa, a minute passes. Together we can stop this.
Verse 5. كَلَّا بَلْ هُوَ الْمَوْتُ الْأَكِيدُ, which means, no, rather it is a certain death. No, in fact it is not a certain death. According to latest statistics, in the 5,328,662 people who were affected by the virus, only 300 or about 300,000 people died. More than 2 million people recovered. So that's a contradiction right there. If you read this verse again and you're well versed in the Arabic language, you will notice that the word kella bel is used wrongly in this verse. I will leave it to you for further linguistic study because I don't want to waste more time on this stupid, senseless verse.
No!
Now, if you compare the verses 3, 4 and 5, you will see that there is absolute lack of coherence. The coherence of the verse is lost because the next sentence does not follow from the rest of the verses. Compare it with the Quranic verse, and the disbelievers said, this is an amazing thing, in Surah Qaf. The verse in Surah Qaf is coherent. It's coherent because the beginning, the middle and the end of the verse are interconnected, like a short story. However, the verse in this attempted surah or the attempted chapter fails to have this level of coherence, since what does disbelieving have to do with the virus being a stubborn disease? Doesn't make any sense. So there is no coherence in this chapter as we saw in the Holy Quran. Verse 6 reads, لا فرق اليوم بين الملوك والعبيد, which means there is no difference today between the kings and the slaves. What do you mean? There is a difference. The majority of poor people who do not have access to medicines and preventive equipment are exposed to this. There are millions of poor people who lost their jobs and are suffering. They're on the verge of financial crisis. What do you mean when you say there is no difference between the rich and the poor? This seems like it was written by an egocentric, privileged brat who does not even have any idea about the current world scenario.
Stop it. Get some help.
Okay, now let's look at verse 7. فَاعْتَصِمُوا بِالْعِلْمِ وَاتْرُكُوا التَّقَالِيدِ, which means, so hold on to science and abandon traditions. Yeah, alright, holding on to science is a good advice, but abandoning all traditions? Dr. Rajesh Chawla, a well-respected doctor, recently said that some Indian traditions will help to fight coronavirus. Cleanliness has been a major part of culture and tradition in almost all parts of the world. Now keep in mind, there are certain traditions that may go against science, but speaking so about all traditions is a lack of precision. But it's alright, considering the quality of the chapter, I wouldn't expect the writer to be educated about all this. Okay, let's look at verse 8. وَلَا تَخْرُجُوا لِتَشْتَرُوا السَّمِيدِ, which means, and don't go out to buy wheat. Wheat? Why wheat? In fact, the government has said, only go out to buy essential items. Wheat is an essential food item in many parts of the world. So what about them? Should they starve? Or maybe you can go outside to buy anything but wheat. Because maybe, according to the author of the chapter, who seems to have the intelligence of a 6-year-old,
wait a minute! Who are you?
wheat may help in the transmission of the virus. So much for scientific knowledge.
Control, manipulate scientific data, take over, blast, control world government, shut down infrastructure, ship everything to China. Just look at this person.
Okay, now let's look at verse 9 and 10. وَامْكُثُوا فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ إِنَّهُ بَلَاءٌ شَدِيدٌ, and stay at home, for it is a strong scourge. Alright, that is a very good advice. Now let's look at verse 10. وَاغْسِلُوا أَيْدِيَكُمْ بِالصَّابُونِ الْجَدِيدِ, and wash your hands with new soap. New soap? Why new soap? The World Health Organization has said to wash hands regularly. So every time you gotta wash your hands, buy a new soap? I hope you're not funded by any soap companies. I wouldn't be surprised if you were, considering the rhetorical quality of your chapter.
It's time to stop. It's time to stop, okay? No more.
Another contradiction here is that if you want to get a new soap, you gotta go outside. But the 9th verse says not to go outside. How stupid is that? How could this stupid verse that says all these stupid things even stand a chance against the Holy Quran? If you analyze the structure of the chapter, the only reason why the Arabic word jadid, which means new, is used here in the last verse is to make it rhyme. So the author chose to sacrifice meaning and semantics for making the verse a bit attractive, which led to the destruction of sense in the whole verse. Speaking of rhymes, their rhyming is kind of messy because they are attempting to force a rhyme by using words that end with similar letters and making the whole sentence weak and plain ridiculous.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
While the Holy Quran has thousands of rhyming schemes that has managed to combine meaning with beauty, making it more eloquent. Again, verse 4 says that the disease is a stubborn disease. Verse 5 says that it's a certain death. But verse 10 tells us to wash our hands. I mean, if death is certain due to the disease, then why even bother to wash our hands? How stupidly inconsistent is that? The verse seems to be incoherent and self-contradictory. Looks like the Quran is far better than this stupid imitation. The Quran was revealed through Prophet Muhammad, who was illiterate, to a society who were masters of literature, who were masters of poetry. The Quran put up the challenge to those people, and not even a single person was able to achieve it. Labid radiallahu anh, who was one of the best poets of that time, whose poems were literally hung on the walls of the Kaaba, even he couldn't bring up a single verse like the Quran. Walid bin Mughira, who was a mastermind of Arabic literature and poetry, surrendered to the eloquence of the Holy Quran. Even though he was a non-Muslim, he told his people that it's impossible It's impossible to compete with the perfection of the Holy Quran. Now, after 1,400 years, the challenge is still standing strong. If those people who had poetry in their blood failed, what makes the people of our time who don't even have a good idea about Arabic literature, who does not have an idea of Arabic poetry, its complexity and its sophisticatedness? How can the people of our time even think that they can succeed in it? It's only their ego. Even if they know the truth, they will not accept it. Dear brothers and sisters, an illiterate man can never come up with a book of such immortal perfection. It can only be from God, who created language and gave human beings the brains to comprehend language, who gave us the brains, the power to think and analyze. So think, learn, relearn and understand.